Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever walked past a historic ruin and just, felt the weight of all that history, wondered about the stories hidden in those old stones, or maybe thought about how we even begin to understand, let alone protect, these fragile pieces of our past? Well, today we're taking a deep dive into Craigmillar Castle. It's this amazing kind of overlooked fortress just outside Edinburgh in Scotland. And our sources for this are really interesting. We've got vivid historical accounts, some revealing archaeology, and actually some groundbreaking research on digital preservation stuff. So our mission really is twofold. First, uncover the human stories in Craigmillar's waltz queens, plots, all that drama. And then explore how modern tech is totally changing how we survey, understand, and fingers crossed, save castles like it. It's more than just stone, right? It's about the future of history itself. Right, so let's start at the beginning. Craigmillar Castle. It's not just any old castle. It's deeply connected to Scottish history, even if Edinburgh Castle maybe gets more of the spotlight. Its story kicks off in the late 14th century. King Robert II granted the lands to the Preston family.
And it was Simon Preston who started building the first bit, that L-plan tower house. That was the foundation.
Yeah, and later, Sir William Preston, he added the inner courtyard. Apparently, he got the idea from his travels in France.
Ah, interesting.
And what's really fascinating here, I think, is how Craigmillar, even early on, wasn't just, walls for defense. For families like the Prestons, these Scottish strongholds, they were big statements. Power, influence, ambition, all bundled up in stone. The way it grew, from a tower house to a courtyard castle, that tells a story of the family making its mark, shaping the local area, the politics.
It's like a physical CV almost.
Kinda, yeah, a physical manifestation of their rise.
And with power comes drama, right. Sometimes even getting attacked. Craigmillar definitely saw some action, most famously maybe in 1544, during the Rough Wooing.
Ah, yes, the Rough Wooing.
Henry VIII's, let's call it aggressive, attempt to marry off his son Edward to the baby Mary, Queen of Scots. English troops under the Earl of Hertford, they did some serious damage to Craigmillar during the burning of Edinburgh. Quite a bit.
But it shows how important it was. Sir Simon Preston got it repaired pretty quickly. They weren't going to let it stay ruined.
No, absolutely. Testament to its strategic value.
But the bit everyone really remembers, the sort of most infamous chapter, that's got to be Mary, Queen of Scots. She stayed there twice, and it's that second visit in 1566. That's where things get really dark.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where it gets truly captivating for me. Mary's in this awful situation, ill, depressed, politically cornered, and a terrible plan gets hatched right there, inside Craigmillar.
Exactly. By late 1566, Mary was still physically unwell from an illness she'd had, and historians think suffering from severe depression, too, a really low point. And it was during this incredibly vulnerable time at Craigmillar that this grim agreement was made.
The Craigmillar Bond.
That's the one. Several powerful nobles, Bothwell included, they signed a pact to murder her husband, Lord Darnley, who was deeply unpopular, it has to be said. Oh, absolutely. And the pact took its name directly from the castle, the Craigmillar Bond. The murder itself happened the next year, 1567, at Kirkafield nearby. So Craigmillar is directly linked to this huge political conspiracy. It's the stage where a queen's fate, maybe the kingdom's fate, was being secretly decided.
It's incredible.
It wasn't just a place she visited. It was central to the plot. And she had actually been there before in 63, meeting the English ambassador.
Yeah.
So it had diplomatic uses, too.
It's almost chilling, isn't it, to think you can walk through those same rooms today where that conspiracy might have unfolded.
Makes you wonder.
And the contrast is just so stark, because not long after this dark time at Craigmillar in that same year, 1566, she's at Stirling Castle. And she's putting on this incredibly elaborate pageant for her son James's baptism, the Fort Halden.
Right.
A mock siege of an enchanted castle. It was all about projecting power, divinity, strength.
Well, if you connect that to the bigger picture of her reign, these big shows, they weren't just parties. They were serious political theater. Remember, she grew up in the French Valois court, which was all about spectacle and symbolism.
Ah, okay.
So the Fort Halden, with actors dressed as, wild Highlanders, knights, Moors, even counterfeit devils, that was all carefully crafted messaging. It was designed to impress, to unify the court, project power to other countries, even while her own life was in complete turmoil.
So it shows a different side to her. Resilience, maybe? Political skill?
I think so, yeah. Despite everything she was going through personally.
Amazing how much history these places soak up. Public drama, private struggles. So Craigmillar saw all that, but then, like the families, the castle itself moved into a new phase. It left the Preston family in 1639. Then Sir John Gilmore bought it in 1660.
And he was a big legal figure, Lord President of the Court of Session. And he actually did some significant remodeling, updated the West Range, probably made it more comfortable, more modern for the time. Shows how needs change, even in old castles.
But even that wasn't forever.
No. Eventually, the Gilmores moved out to Inch House nearby. And by about 1775, Craigmillar was, well, largely falling into ruin. It became sort of a romantic feature in the parkland. Picturesque decay, you know.
Right, like something from a painting.
Exactly. But people still found it fascinating. Even Queen Victoria popped by in 1886.
Did she really?
She did. And that royal visit prompted Walter James Little Gilmore to do some restoration work, which helped ensure it survived into the modern era.
Okay, so we've walked through the human stories, Mary, the Prestons, the Gilmores. Let's turn to the building itself now, the actual stones. What can visitors still see today? What secrets do the walls hold?
Well, the absolute core is that 14th century L-plan tower house. It's built right onto a rocky outcrop, very clever, and it's genuinely one of the oldest tower houses in Scotland. Really solid, early defensive design, walls up to 11 feet thick in places.
What?
Then around that core, you've got layers. First, a 15th century courtyard wall, which has some particularly fine defensive features for its time. And then later still, an outer courtyard wall was added. That enclosed more space, including a chapel and a ducat, a pigeon house.
A ducat? Why was that important?
Well, it was partly a status symbol, but also a practical source of food, eggs, and meat. Quite common in castles and grand houses.
Right, and inside the main tower, what's there?
You'd find the Great Hall, the main social space. There's also a prison, which is a grim reminder of its other functions. And there's a room traditionally said to be Mary's room, but it's probably unlikely. She likely stayed in the bigger, more comfortable East Range that was added later.
Ah, okay, so maybe a bit of legend there.
Probably. But what's definitely there is this amazing maze of medieval tunnels. Adds a real sense of mystery. Oh, and the fish pond. You can still see the remains of it, shaped like a P for Preston.
A pea-shaped fish pond. That's fantastic. A personal touch from centuries ago.
Isn't it? A lovely detail.
And you mentioned views. If you go today...
Oh, absolutely. If you climb the tower house, the panoramic views are stunning. You can see across Edinburgh, spot Edinburgh Castle, Holyrood Park. It really gives you a sense of its position.
And people can visit.
Yes. It's managed by Historic Environment Scotland now, and it's open to the public. A really tangible link to all that history we've been talking about.
So visiting is one thing. We saw how they adapted after the COVID lockdown in 2020 with one-way systems, booking tickets online, that kind of thing. Practical stuff. But maintaining these places, that's a whole different challenge, isn't it? Especially with climate change, just the sheer age.
Oh, like a huge challenge.
Yeah.
And it raises this really critical question. How do we actually inspect and maintain these massive old masonry structures safely? Effectively. Think about Craigmillar's thick walls, that irregular rubble stone. It's all under constant stress.
And there are so many of them in Scotland.
Exactly. Something like 500,000 buildings from before 1919. Historic Environment Scotland alone looks after over 220 masonry properties. And the old ways of checking them, sending people up on scaffolding, it's slow, it's incredibly expensive. Scaffolding can be, what, 10 to 40% of the cost?
Right.
And it's subjective. What one inspector sees, another might miss. Plus, it's dangerous. Falls from height are a massive risk. We desperately need something better.
Okay, so if the old ways are problematic, scaffolding, subjective eyes, what's the alternative? This is where the tech comes in, right?
Precisely. This is where digital technologies are really starting to revolutionize heritage conservation.
We're talking things like laser scanning, photogrammetry.
Exactly. Terrestrial laser scanning, TLS, and photogrammetry, PG. They let us capture incredibly detailed 3D information about these sites without touching them.
How do they work, in simple terms?
Okay, so TLS sends out millions of laser beams. They bounce back, and the scanner measures the time and angle to build up this super dense, super accurate 3D point cloud, like a digital fingerprint of every nook and cranny.
Right.
Photogrammetry uses photos. Lots and lots of high-resolution photos taken from every possible angle. Special software then stitches these together to create a 3D model.
And the advantages are?
Huge. Much faster data collection. It's more objective, much safer for workers, way more cost-effective over time, and crucially, it's non-destructive. You're not physically interfering with historic fabric.
Okay, so getting the data is one thing. That's a big step. But the real leap is analyzing that data, isn't it?
That's right. Just having a giant point cloud isn't enough. The innovation comes in understanding what it tells you. And this is where the collaboration between Historic Environment Scotland, the University of Edinburgh, and Heriot-Watt University has been so important. They're pushing the boundaries of data analysis.
What are the main breakthroughs they've been working on?
There are two really key areas. The first is automated segmentation.
Okay, what's that?
It's about getting computers to automatically identify the individual stones and the mortar joints between them within that 3D point cloud.
Sounds tricky, especially for uneven walls like Craigmillar's.
It is tricky, especially for rubble masonry, where the stones are all irregular shapes and sizes. The algorithm they developed is clever, though. It looks for the mortar by detecting these tiny U-shaped valleys in the 3D data, essentially the slight dips where the mortar sits between the stones.
Ah, okay. It sees the shape of the mortar.
Exactly. It uses a mathematical technique called a 2D continuous wavelet transform, or CWT, which is really good at finding patterns like that on uneven surfaces.
That's amazing for rubble. But what about smoother stone, like ashlar, where the joints are really thin?
Great question. Yeah, ashlar masonry, the neat, irregular blocks with tight joints, needs a different approach. For that, the algorithms look at color data, RGB, HSV values, and intensity histograms, which basically map light and dark areas. This helps them pick out those fine vertical and horizontal lines.
And they've tested this.
Yes, they tested the ashlar method on St. Andrew's House in Edinburgh, a huge building, and it worked really well, finding the mortar lines accurately.
And what does this mean in practice? Why is segmenting the stones so useful?
It's huge. Take Linlithgow Palace. For one wall section, about 197 square meters, the algorithm found over 3,000 stones and measured nearly 1.5 kilometers of mortar joints.
Wow, that's specific.
That's specific, and that could completely change how repair work is costed. Instead of guessing based on area, you could price based on the actual length of mortar that needs fixing.
That makes sense.
Plus, they've released a free tool, an open-source plugin for software called Cloud Compare, specifically for rubble masonry. Professionals using it can segment walls almost 4 times faster than doing it by hand and just as accurately.
So it's faster, cheaper potential, more accurate.
Exactly. It's moving from manual guesswork to precise digital measurement, a real game changer for planning conservation.
Okay, that's identifying the part stones, mortar. But what about finding the damage, the cracks, the erosion?
That's the second major area. Defect detection and classification using machine learning, ML.
Right, using AI.
Essentially, yes. Training computer models to automatically spot and categorize different types of defects. They do this by analyzing loads of different parameters from the 3D scan data. Geometric things like how rough a stone surface is or if it's bulging or receding, and also color-related things like identifying discoloration, stains, biological growth, based on analyzing hue and value dispersion across the stone.
So it's like teaching a computer to be a super-powered building surveyor.
Kind of, yeah. Training it to spot thousands of tiny clues that indicate a problem, a crack, starting stone flaking damp patches.
Have they tried this out too?
Absolutely. They did a case study at the Chapel Royal in Stirling Castle using both TLS and PG data to train an ML model. And it successfully identified thousands of different defect manifestations, both geometric ones like material loss and chromatic ones like staining.
So why does this matter so much?
Because it promises a much more accurate, objective, and crucially complete inspection. You get a full picture, not just what the human eye happens to catch on a given day. This leads to better diagnosis of what's actually wrong and much more effective planning for repairs and maintenance, moving away from reactive fixes to proactive care based on solid data.
So we're going way beyond just finding cracks here. This feels like building a complete digital copy, a digital twin of these historic places. What's the really big picture view? What does this enable for heritage conservation overall?
The potential is massive. When you take this detailed digital documentation and integrate it into what are called historic building information models, HBIMs, and use linked data technologies, you can start doing systematic monitoring over time. See how things are changing, predict problems. It allows for genuinely data-driven decisions about where to spend limited conservation budgets, moving towards strategic planning at a regional or even national level. Has goals to prioritize work.
From reactive repairs to proactive, preventative strategy.
Exactly. And the research is ongoing. People are looking at integrating ground-penetrating radar GPR to see underground, infrared thermography to spot damp or hidden voids, multispectral imaging for material analysis, even using satellites with radar INSAR to detect tiny movements and structures over time.
Wow, from
Yeah,
satellites.
so it really raises the question, how do we bring all these amazing digital insights together? Not just to fix walls, but to tell richer stories about places like Craigmillar and ensure they survive for future generations.
What an incredible journey we've taken. We started with the deep history, the royal intrigue of Mary, Queen of Scots, right inside Craigmillar's 14th century walls. We looked at the Prestons, the architecture, that P-shaped fish pond, and then we leaped forward centuries to these cutting-edge digital tools, laser scanning, photogrammetry, machine learning, that are now helping protect Craigmillar and sites all over Scotland.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
look, there's still work to do to roll these technologies out fully, to refine them, but the potential is undeniable. They offer a future where maintaining our incredible built heritage could be cheaper, much safer, and based on objective facts, not just guesswork. It's this fascinating blend, isn't it? Deep historical understanding meeting the most advanced technology we have.
It really is. So maybe the next time you visit a historic castle, any castle, picture not just the ghosts of queens and nobles, but also those invisible laser beams, the complex algorithms running behind the scenes. They're part of the castle's story now, too, a story of preservation that connects the deep past with the digital future. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other hidden histories might these tools uncover next? And how does knowing all this change how we connect with these amazing places? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.